This video is sponsored by Miniswap. Alright, welcome back you lot. I really wanted to talk about Total War Warhammer 40,000 and that's exactly what we're going to do because it was revealed yesterday and there's a trailer and everything which we're going to take a look at, and there's a very interesting thing which I haven't actually seen yet, which is a little bit of gameplay right at the end, because that's one of the big questions that I've had about the idea of Total War Warhammer 40k. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not a Total War expert. I've obviously played the different Warhammer ones, and I had played a few of the, historical-based ones in the past. I'm trying to remember which ones, actually. There's been a couple over the years. It's been quite a long-running franchise. The thing that's been getting me when thinking about this is the idea of, the galactic approach, because obviously 40k is a lot bigger than just a single planet. Can't really do what they're doing, for instance, with Total War Warhammer, of just, here's your big map, off you go and conquer it. That would feel, I think, somewhat lackluster, given the sheer scale of Warhammer 40k, compared to most of the stuff that has been approached in a Total War game before now. But there's just a tiny bit of gameplay right at the end of the trailer that I'm excited to take a look at, because I'm hoping that might answer that question a little bit. Before that though, we may as well just take a look at the trailer as a whole, so let's have a glance, get it full screen and see what we've got. I mean, there is one section I've already seen, which makes me happy. Obviously, Space Marine focused, clearly.
Darkness
Good voiceover as well.
of the far future.
I mean,
Every soul's survival hangs by a thread.
they really do know how to do trailers for 40k now, don't they? Simon Peterson's got so much to I swear Astartes has decided the tone and cinematic nature
Mankind is beset by endless tides of aliens
of 40k by this point.
and demons.
Obviously, can't have an orc get crushed. Poor
Of
lad.
aliens, traitors, and demons.
Very fun seeing battle wagons in there. Good number of them as well. Can I just say there is one thing? There is one thing with this trailer that is... I wouldn't say it's bugging me, but when it comes to Warhammer 40k, when they present new stuff, 9 times out of 10, it is Space Marines doing the Space Marine thing, which obviously makes sense. Space Marines are the poster boys for the setting. They are the thing that sells the most, and as such, Games Workshop want to present them in a powerful position as much as possible. But orcs are also playable, and that's what makes this a little bit, in a way, like you're pushing the one faction as being incredibly more powerful than the other, which technically on a one-to-one basis, yes, but it's making the orcs look kind of worthless so far. Now, if there's more trailers where we actually get to see the orcs do something interesting to the Space Marines, then, that'll become a non-complaint, like a non-issue. But for the announced trailer, they've definitely honed in hard on, look how cool Space Marines are, which, again, totally understand why, I get the logic, but Space Marines aren't the only playable thing, which means that, in a way, how cool the orcs look is being heavily sacrificed in favour of the normal poster boys, right? Which I don't know that I necessarily like that, but I do understand why they've done it, Okay, let's just carry on. To be fair, it does look very cool. They have nailed it. As the cinematic goes, it's very
countless worlds,
fun.
battles rage.
I mean, that makes the whole trailer a 9 out of 10, purely because we get to see Land Raiders. We saw 2 Land Raiders. I'm in, 100%. That's some Firstborn stuff, but they're still in there, and I love that. The only thing that stops it from being a 10 out of 10 is that one of them isn't a Crusader. And I only say that because seeing a Crusader fly down with a shed load of bolts flying out from it in all directions would be class. I mean, they were close, but, I just want to see that bit again. I just want to see the Land Raiders a bit again. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's just so good. And this is what I mean where the orcs are being made to look a bit chump-like. Now, that obviously evens the playing field a little bit. A little bit. Oh, good lord. I mean, the playing field is definitely more even the other way now. Very effective trailer.
Lead your armies.
It is very effective.
Conquer worlds. Fight on as the galaxy burns.
Nailed the tone. Nailed the look. The overall structure of it is really nice.
Peace amongst the stars. There is only war.
I think it's a decent announced trailer. I think they've done a really good job with it. Now, this is the bit that I'm like, alright, let's see what's what. Because a bit of gameplay might help working out how this whole thing's going to work. Okay, so got a few. Was that Death Dread? Killer Cans. I couldn't tell what the scale was for a second. Interestingly, straight off the bat, despite the fact that, you know, obviously the setting is sci-fi, it looks like a Total War map. I don't know how to even describe that in a way that makes sense. There was just something about it that looks Total War. I realise that in the context of watching a Total War trailer, then obviously, yeah, but there is just something about the way they do their maps where this feels familiar. It doesn't look familiar in terms of like what you might be used to from the Total War franchise, but in terms of just overall structure, for some reason that feels recognisable to me. Also interesting as well, it looks like, despite obviously there's going to be as much focus on melee combat and the like, because it's Warhammer, and despite the fact that everyone who's got cool guns, hitting people in the face with swords is often more important because of the cool factor, it still feels relatively like big blocks of stuff standing there shooting each other / charging into each other. I mean, I know this is only a tiny fraction of gameplay, but the way it's structured feels like that to some extent. So that is kind of interesting in and of itself. They might be changing the formula a bit to deal with a different subject matter, but it kind of looks like the structure of it, at least when it comes to the combat, seems to be pretty familiar. It's a very cool zoom out. Oh, is that full exterminatus in the background? Okay, well I'm assuming that's going to be an option then. Okay, go back a little bit. And so, obviously multiple planets. I wonder if it's going to be multiple systems as well. Because I feel like it's got to be significantly different, right? It's got to be significantly different for it to make sense. That's interesting. I mean, it's such a short amount of actual trailer. There's so little to properly go off, but there's just enough to be like, okay, but how does this work? Which, I don't know. I think I have vague theories for that, but whether they'll turn out to be accurate, I'm not sure. But before we get into those, now if you're looking to expand your pile of potential or move a few kits or indeed a few bits onto another home, this video sponsor Miniswap is for you. Miniswap is an online marketplace made by hobbyists for hobbyists where you can sell and buy second-hand models. Whether they're new in box, fully painted, there's a vast range of stuff that you can find. Today we're going to take a look at something that is really a personal interest of mine, and that is bits. See, I want to see more bits on Miniswap. As you can see off to the left there, under assembly you can pick new on sprue partially assembled, fully assembled, or bits. Now, we've talked before about how new on sprue is perfect if you're doing kit bashes, especially if you want to make one-off characters or the like, but you cannot underestimate the value of those random bits and pieces you've got lying in boxes or bags around your hobby area, because no matter what it is, there's a chance someone is going to want that. Now, if we go for partially assembled and bits, we can find a nice mix of stuff. Personally, I'm immediately drawn to the wings off the Vargeist. Frankly, wings are kind of hard to come by. On a similar note, sometimes you've got an idea for a model and there is only one specific item that will do. Looking at this, I can immediately think of 4 or 5 things that I'd like to build out of a massive cannon from the Leadbelchers set, and funnily enough, it's right there. So get digging through those bits boxes, work out the stuff that you think you're never going to use, the stuff that you've been hanging on to for years but never found a purpose for, and rehome them. If you sign up to Miniswap using the link in the description and the pinned comment down below, you will get 0% seller commission for the first 90 days after sign up, and you'll get free shipping on the first order. Thank you very much to Miniswap for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. So map-wise at least, how is it going to work? I mean, immediately the idea here feels like the planets are going to be closer to what your settlements would be. But even then, that feels like it might be a bit too small scale. And there's also the question of how that work for things like the Space Marines. I mean, not every planet that a Space Marine liberates or conquers or, you know, absolutely pummels because there's a Xenos presence ends up being property of that chapter, right? So it would either need to be set in a place where it makes sense for Space Marines to conquer and then stay, or there would have to be a system in place so that it made sense for you to nominally, as a Space Marine commander, like be in charge of that much territory and have things effectively sort of belong to you. Factions wise, we've got Space Marines, obviously, we've got Orcs, obviously, but there's also Astra Militarum and Eldari. We did see some of the Astra Militarum stuff in the cinematic part. Very nice seeing the Rogel Dawn tank, even if one did get blown up. But there could be a link there as to why planets are under the control of Space Marines, despite the fact they wouldn't, like, settle in a traditional sense. I'm assuming we will see actual stuff for the Eldari as we go along, and there are more trailers. Like, this is obviously early on. It makes sense they would hype the Stomper, because let's face it, Stompers are quality. We love a good Stomper. It's dumb as hell, and that's one of the things that makes it so charming. Being able to customize your armies and actually have them with the color scheme and the chapters or whatever that you want, it feels like a given at this point. It does feel like a given, but can you imagine how annoyed people would be if that wasn't the case? Can you imagine the sheer amount of frustration if it was a case of, okay, finally doing it, finally Total War, Warhammer 40k, war on a grand scale, war on a massive scale, but you've always got to play Ultramarines. That would not go down well. I mean, there is still... I've literally seen people complaining about the fact that you have to play as Titus in Ultramarine armor in Space Marine. So, like the first one. So, nowadays, not being able to do that, that would be mental. But they have thought about that and actually implemented it, which is just a nice thing. I'm assuming it also applies to everything. Like, they showed the example in the trailer of Space Marines, but my guess would be you're going to be able to do it with the whole lot, which also means that, you know, your guard regiments, even though they're probably all going to look Cadian, will at least have a bit of variety to them. Although, no, I say that, they're all going to look Cadian. That's not necessarily true, is it? That's not necessarily true. Generally speaking, Total War rosters tend to be pretty big. There's a lot of different variations, there's a lot of different unit types, there's a lot of different units. So, no, me saying they're probably all going to be looking like Acadians is a bit unfair, because there's a good chance that a significant chunk of them actually won't. You might actually get some cool stuff in there that does different things, and as such, maybe, and this is the biggest hope and cope in the world, imagine if there was like a Vostroyan unit in there. I don't know what they do differently, I've got no idea, but it would be cool to see them, because God knows most of the guard customization is out the window these days. I mean, if you can't have it physically, having it in a video game is, I guess, a close second, a distant second to guard players, but still. I'm super curious how this is going to impact Dawn of War as well, because it could be very easy, if you look at it very, very surface level, because they're obviously very different games, but to the casual observer, to like the outside observer, to just like strategy games in general, seeing Total War Warhammer 40,000 and Dawn of War 4, you could be forgiven for thinking, well, these are two games that are very similar, which in some ways maybe. I mean, the real-time strategy element, yes, but the framework around them is very, very different. And the fact that, you know, Dawn of War has been talking about doing base building again, and it's going to be a bit less, I mean, hopefully it's just nothing like 3, but a bit less like 2 and a bit more like 1. But then that means the scale of it, even though it is technically a bit more squad-based, that is going to shoot up a bit. Which, again, kind of makes it feel like you've got two things that are relatively similar, but I think when you get right down to it, I mean, I'd hope that there's enough difference that both of them can survive, because there are aspects of Total War that are just completely disparate from things like Dawn of War, from just your standard traditional RTS game. So, but I don't know. I've already seen a couple of people like, well, why buy the other one then? And, I mean, the answer to that is obviously you buy the one that you prefer. You buy the one that resonates more with you, or the playstyle of which you find more enjoyable. But on the very surface, there's definite similarities that, I don't know, could make things interesting, to say the least. Really, for me, the thing I'm finding most interesting about this announcement is thinking about what they're going to have to do differently to make it work. Like, how much like a Total War game is this Total War game going to be? My main, experience with the Total War series is through the Warhammer games. I think across the three of them, I think I've got maybe 500 hours playtime, something like that. Not a huge amount, obviously, for that type of game. I just don't really have enough time to play games all that much. But I've really enjoyed my time with them. And there is a very specific kind of formula to it and a very specific layout to it. And that obviously cannot translate one-to-one onto 40k. So it's now making me wonder, in the grand scheme of Total War, I feel like from my memory of playing other Total War games in the past, it feels like the Warhammer ones are relatively standard, if that makes sense. You got your big map, you conquer your big map, that's pretty much it. This is not going to be like that, and it's making me wonder how much like a Total War game this Total War game is going to be to properly adapt to how Warhammer 40,000 works in the fiction. So that's the main thing that I'm just finding super interesting about this whole thing, and hopefully they'll release a bit more sooner rather than later. They may well have just dropped the announced trailer now and then just be like, and that's it, I'll see you in a year for more updates, but I hope not. And I really want to just see, how is it going to work? Because I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will work. It's how well it works is the important bit. That's the bit that's going to decide whether people are playing it, a couple of weeks after launch, let alone a couple of years after launch. So yeah, let me know what you think of that a lot in the comments down below. Any predictions, any guesses, any ideas as to what they might do differently? Any Total War games that you think actually the format of those would apply well to this that I just simply haven't played? Drop those in the comments down below. Again, thank you to Miniswap for sponsoring this video. Use the link in the description of the pinned comment to check them out. And I will see you for the next one.